There's a moment quiet, quick, almost invisible, where someone challenges you. They question your character, twist your words, accuse you of something you didn't intend. And right there, most people do exactly what they were trained to do. They defend themselves. That's not what I meant. You misunderstood me. I swear I'm not like that. It sounds fair, honest, human. But here's the truth. No one tells you the second you defend yourself, you lose. Because now you're operating under the illusion that the other person deserves an explanation. And that's a dangerous position to be in. In the world of power, real power perception isn't just important. It's everything. When you flinch, they don't see honesty. They see weakness. They don't see someone trying to clear things up. They see blood in the water. And that's exactly what a predator looks for. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that defending yourself puts you on the back foot. It lowers you. It says, I care what you think, and I need your approval. But the man who doesn't defend himself, he flips the game. He makes the world lean in, wonder, doubt their own judgment. Think about it. When was the last time someone tried to explain their innocence and actually looked stronger for it? Rarely, if ever. Justifying yourself shifts the power dynamic. You're now reacting to their frame. You're accepting their premise. You're telling them, you have the right to challenge me, and I must prove myself worthy in your eyes. Even if you're right, you've already lost ground. Because in power games, it's not about truth. It's about dominance. People don't realize this. They think if they just explain enough, repeat themselves enough, maybe even cry a little, then people will understand. But that's not strategy. That's emotional desperation wearing the mask of clarity. And here's where most people get it wrong. They're not seeking understanding. They're seeking control. But control never comes from explaining. It comes from commanding. And those are two entirely different games. So what do you do instead? You let silence work for you. Someone calls you arrogant, you don't flinch. You don't clarify. You let the accusation hang there untouched. You let it echo. And while they expect a fight, you give them stillness. Why? Because silence is a weapon. It's discomforting. It's confusing. It makes people second-guess themselves. Suddenly, they don't know if they made a mistake. Maybe they came off too emotional. Maybe they exposed themselves. And the longer you stay quiet, the more power shifts back to you. You see, people aren't really watching the accusation. They're watching your response. If you react, you validate the moment. If you don't, you make it insignificant. And there's nothing more maddening to the average person than being ignored when they're trying to provoke you. Now here's where it gets even colder. Sometimes silence isn't enough. Sometimes you turn their attack into a mirror. Someone says, you're manipulative. You respond not with denial, but with a calm, detached, if that's how you see it. No defense, no apology. Just calm indifference. What happens next? They fall apart. Because they were hoping you'd flinch. They were hoping you'd try to fix it. Instead, they're left holding their own hostility, and they start wondering if they look crazy now. And honestly, they kinda do. This tactic, this refusal to dance to their emotional tune, throws them off balance. And while they spiral, you stay grounded, you stay composed, you keep your energy clean, and that's how you win without even lifting a finger. The longer you remain unbothered, the more your presence grows. People start watching you differently. They stop questioning your value. They start feeling it. And they wonder, what does he know that I don't? Why is he so calm? That confusion turns into awe. That awe turns into power. Now imagine this in real life. You're in a room, maybe a meeting or dinner. Someone throws a jab. Maybe they make a slick comment about your attitude, your past, your success. Everyone's watching. Everyone's waiting. What do? You stay still. You don't laugh. You don't raise an eyebrow. You let the silence stretch. And in that space, they start to squirm. They look around. They explain their joke. They fumble. Because now the whole room is wondering why you're not reacting. You just flip the social frame. It works because power isn't always loud. It's often invisible. It's felt, not shown. And the most dangerous person in the room is rarely the one shouting. It's the one who doesn't need to. Machiavelli didn't just study politics. He studied people. And he understood that power lies not in the words you speak, but in the words you choose not to. Because what you don't say forces others to imagine, to project, to wonder. And that space, that's where myth is born. That's where control lives. Let's take it to the digital world. Someone calls you out online, calls you fake, toxic, cold. What do most people do? They post a long message. They clarify. They defend. They try to clean it up. But here's what you do instead: nothing. Or better yet, you post something like, "People always call you dangerous when they can't control you." You didn't address the insult. You reframed it as proof of strength. Now, who looks insecure? Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a pressure. It makes people fill in the blanks. And when people are forced to explain their own anger, their own drama, they overextend. They look unstable. They lose the room. And while they unravel, you ascend. Quietly, elegantly, unapologetically. There's a specific kind of power that only reveals itself when you stop chasing validation. Most people walk into a room and subconsciously ask for approval through their tone, their posture, their words. But the moment you need people to see you a certain way, they feel it, and they know they can control you. That's why the Machiavellian never asks to be understood. He assumes his presence is enough. He doesn't clarify because to clarify is to admit confusion. He doesn't correct because to correct is to accept the frame of attack. And he never explains because the second you explain, you're asking permission to exist on someone else's terms. When someone accuses you, whether in business, love, or life, their goal isn't truth, it's power. Their words are a lure, a trap designed to pull you into their emotional arena. The moment you respond, you're in their territory. And even if you win, you've already lost. You played the game they set. You acknowledge their authority to question you. A Machiavellian doesn't just resist this game. He redefines it. Let's say you're in a meeting and someone says, "I'm not sure this strategy was well thought through." What do most people do? They lean in, clarify, get defensive. They try to prove themselves. But when you do that, everyone sees your energy drop. They see you switch from creator to defender. And defenders don't lead. Defenders follow. So here's the alternative. You lean back. You pause. You smile not out of smugness, but calm curiosity. And then you say, "Let's hear your version." Now the spotlight flips. They have to deliver. They have to prove. And you stay still. That's stillness, that's power. Because stillness creates discomfort. It forces people to see themselves. And most people aren't ready for that. The truth is, when people try to provoke you, they don't expect stillness. They expect reaction. They want emotion. They want you flustered off balance on the defensive. But when you don't give it to them, their tactics implode. You're no longer the one being judged, they are. And in personal relationships, this dynamic becomes even sharper. Let's say your partner says, "You don't care about me anymore." The average person panics. They rush in with reassurances, explanations, overcorrections. But in doing so, they validate the emotional frame. They reward the drama. And once you reward emotional manipulation, it never stops. Now, what does a Machiavellian do? He stays calm. He doesn't mock. He doesn't dismiss. He lets the energy hang and then responds with something grounded like, "That's not how I see it." Short, neutral, unshaken. That one line removes the drama from the situation and puts the emotional responsibility back where it belongs. Not on you, but on the accuser. And here's the deeper tactic. Sometimes you don't respond at all. Someone throws shade online. Don't block them. Don't reply. Don't acknowledge. Just vanish. Let your silence become a mirror. Because when people are ignored, they either collapse or overextend. They start posting more, repeating themselves, trying harder to bait a reaction. And with every attempt, they reveal their own instability. You haven't done anything, but they've exposed themselves. That's what power looks like in its purest form. You don't fight. You let them destroy themselves trying to get a rise out of you. Because people who need a reaction are already owned by their own emotions. And when you're the one person who refuses to play that game, you look untouchable. And sometimes you go even further. You don't just stay calm, you flip the accusation. They say you're arrogant. You respond. Strange how confidence makes people uncomfortable. They say you're manipulative. Only those who can't be influenced say that. They say you're fake. People always say that when they stop getting what they want. You didn't defend. You reframed. You made their jab about them. And suddenly they're the ones backpedaling, trying to prove they're not jealous, not bitter, not small. It's a psychological reversal. A judo throw. You used their emotional momentum and turned it into their public unraveling. Machiavelli would call this the turn of the blade. You don't stop the sword. You let them fall on it themselves. Most people are taught to protect their reputation at all costs. But Machiavelli saw the flaw in that thinking. He knew the more you try to prove your goodness, the more you look guilty. The moment you chase innocence, you've already admitted the possibility of guilt. So the true strategist doesn't bother with defense. He doesn't try to convince. He operates above the noise. He's too composed to be shaken, too grounded to be baited. And slowly, those who try to bring him down begin to look like they're grasping for something that isn't there. They become the spectacle. They become the ones the crowd whispers about. Not because of what they said, but because of how you didn't react. Because here's the secret, people don't remember what was said. They remember who stayed calm. So the next time someone takes a shot at you in front of others, whether it's a comment, a passive-aggressive joke, or a direct attack, don't react. Hold silence. Let the tension build. Look around the room. Scan, observe, and let the weight of your presence do the work. Then, if necessary, respond with something surgical. You seem emotional today. Or nothing at all. Just a glance, a pause, a pivot to a new topic. What happens next? The attacker starts explaining their own comment. They feel the eyes of the room shift. Suddenly, they're no longer funny or clever. They're exposed. And you're the one everyone is now watching with quiet respect. Because you didn't need to win. You let the moment collapse on its own. Here's where the game gets even sharper online. In the digital world, everything moves faster, hits harder, and spreads wider. People post comments, send messages, take public shots, all hoping to get a reaction. But Machiavelli would tell you the second you explain yourself on the internet, you've already given your power away. Why? Because explanation signals that you feel exposed. And when people sense that vulnerability, they dig deeper. So when someone calls you toxic, manipulative, arrogant, don't argue. Don't clarify. Distort. Reframe. Post something like, "People always call you dangerous when they can't control you." Just that, nothing else. It's not a defense, it's a declaration. It flips their accusation into an unspoken compliment. Now you look composed. They look bitter. You've taken their energy and redirected it into dominance. This is narrative control. You didn't argue. You didn't beg for understanding. You shifted the spotlight. And the crowd, they start wondering who really holds the power. Not because of what was said, but because of how calmly and confidently you held your ground. There are 3 tools you can use instead of defending yourself: silence, deflection, and precision cuts. Silence is the default. It's the rawest form of power. It leaves your accuser exposed, hanging, hoping you'll speak so they can feel validated. But you don't. And in that silence, they unravel. Deflection is your redirect. You don't take the hit, you sidestep it. You're full of yourself. Response. Confidence upsets the insecure. You're fake. Response. I don't owe you authenticity. You think you're better than everyone. Response. No, I just don't think like everyone. These aren't rebuttals. They're status moves. They don't seek approval, they assert presence. And finally, precision cuts. Short, sharp responses that don't escalate, they end. Think phrases like noted. Okay. Think what you like. Time will tell. These aren't passive, they're closers. Each one locks the door behind you and leaves no emotional handle for someone to grab onto. Now think bigger. Think long term. Imagine a life where you never explain yourself again. Not to strangers, not to critics, not even to people who pretend to care but secretly root for your downfall. You move differently. You walk into rooms differently. People feel it. They watch what they say around you. Not because you're aggressive, but because your silence speaks louder than their noise. This is the Machiavellian frame. You don't play defense. You never ask to be understood. You never beg to be seen as good. You let your existence create the effect, and that effect is mystery, command, and control. It's not just about strength. It's about immunity. Strength still reacts. Immunity doesn't flinch. Strength still wants to prove something. Immunity doesn't need to. Strength fights. Immunity watches the fight dissolve in silence. And here's the paradox. When you no longer react, you gain allies. Because something fascinating happens when people see you stay silent under attack. They start defending you. They say, that was unnecessary. He didn't even respond. And they're still going. Why are they coming after him like that? Your silence makes others uncomfortable enough to speak. And they become your shield without you ever asking. That's the ultimate leverage when your restraint inspires others to speak on your behalf. And here's what separates the average man from the strategist. The average man reacts. He wants to fix things. He wants to be understood. But the strategist, he defines. He defines his posture. He defines his tone. He defines his image. And most importantly, he defines his silence. Every word not spoken becomes a weapon. Every reaction avoided becomes a wall. Every explanation withheld becomes a message I don't answer to you. The strategist understands that perception is rarely built on proof. It's built on energy. And when your energy is composed, cool, quiet, people assign you strength, not because they've seen it, but because they feel it. And what people feel is always more powerful than what they hear. So stop chasing clarity. Clarity is for therapy. Power is for the field. Stop trying to fix your image. The more you try, the more broken it looks. Instead, embody presence. Walk like someone who doesn't explain. Speak like someone who doesn't beg. React like someone who has nothing to prove. And slowly, the world will adjust. People will second-guess before coming for you. They'll hesitate before questioning you. And not because you argued your case, but because you never did. Because the man who never defends himself doesn't just appear confident, he becomes the standard. And that is the final evolution. You're not reacting. You're not resisting. You're not clarifying. You're commanding. You're redefining what power feels like simply by refusing to play the game that everyone else is addicted to. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to fix your name. You don't need to win the debate. Because your silence already made them talk to themselves, and in doing so, they lost the one thing you never gave away: control. And that is how power becomes effortless.